Welcome back, everyone, to today's highly focused explainer. We are taking the day's absolute most critical current affairs and synthesizing them directly into your syllabus. So whether you're gearing up for your UPSC Prelims, tackling the mains, or preparing for any major government exam, this session is custom-built to give you exactly what you need, structured perfectly so it actually sticks in your memory.
All right, let's take a quick look at today's roadmap. We're covering society and social justice, defense and indigenization, the global AI race, a geography deep dive into the Black Sea, and finally, the 2026 Commonwealth Games. Let's just dive right in. Section 1. Society and Social Justice, where we'll be analyzing some deeply rooted systemic challenges. We're kicking things off with General Studies Papers 1 and 2, looking at two really glaring contradictions in Indian society today. So, we really have to ask ourselves, how is it that despite heavy mechanization and strict legal bans, workers are still tragically losing their lives in septic tanks? Take the recent absolutely heartbreaking case in Noida. A sanitation worker went into a sewer and was immediately overcome by toxic, completely odorless and colorless gases. A security guard heroically rushed in to pull him out, but he too collapsed and died. This isn't just a minor administrative hiccup, you guys. This happens because workers are routinely entering these extremely hazardous spaces without the bare minimum. No oxygen cylinders, no harnesses, and absolutely no emergency rescue systems in place.
And you have to understand, this practice carries massive historical weight. It's not just a modern-day lack of protective gear. It's a symptom of centuries of caste-based discrimination. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar actually traced this all the way back to 600 BC, noting that ancient texts tied this horrific practice directly to societal structures, explicitly assigning the removal of human waste to specific communities. So, to truly eliminate this, we have to replace that deeply entrenched discrimination with actual dignity and justice.
Shifting to another incredibly serious crisis, we've seen an 80% rise in student suicides over just the last decade. That data is frankly staggering. We are talking about nearly 2,000 students dying every single year specifically due to exam failures. For so many kids today, fighting tooth and nail for a handful of seats in premier institutions, success is seen as the only option and failure is literally perceived as the end of the road. We saw this play out recently with the massive distress surrounding competitive medical exams, where over 1,000 of these yearly victims were tragically under the age of 18.
Now, the government hasn't been completely silent on this. They've rolled out schemes like Manodarpan to offer psychosocial support, and the Mental Health Care Act importantly decriminalized suicide attempts, treating them with the empathy they require. But here's the crucial takeaway. While individual counseling is great, true eradication of this crisis demands massive structural shifts in our education system itself. We've got to address the immense, crushing systemic pressure we're placing on these young minds.
Moving on to Section 2, Defense and Indigenization. This is Atmanirbhar Bharat in action. Let's pivot to GS Paper 3 and look at how India is scaling completely new heights in defense manufacturing.
It is honestly incredible to see that defense now accounts for 14.5% of the national budget. That is roughly 7.85 lakh crore rupees, actively fueling self-reliance. Think about that pivot for a second. We have transformed from being one of the globe's largest defense importers into a nation proudly churning out a record 1.78 lakh crore rupees in domestic defense production. It's a massive paradigm shift.
Now, a massive piece of that puzzle is Project Kusha, which is basically India's homegrown answer to the S-400 system. Designed by DRDO, this surface-to-air missile defense system neutralizes aerial threats like drones, cruise missiles, and even fighter jets, and it does this across three very distinct ranges. By layering these M1, M2, and M3 interceptors, India is essentially building an impenetrable, entirely indigenous air defense shield.
And it goes way beyond Project Kusha. Look at the INS Mahendragiri, a cutting-edge stealth frigate boasting 75% indigenous content. Then there's the Pinnacle long-range multi-barrel rocket launcher, and of course, our highly successful BrahMos and Astra missiles. These aren't just securing our own borders anymore. They're turning India into a highly competitive defense exporter globally. I mean, we've got countries like Indonesia actively stepping up to buy our tech now.
All right, Section 3, the global AI race. This is the strategic battle for technological supremacy. We're shifting gears to international tech here, looking at the massive structural race unfolding between two superpowers.
This dynamic is fascinating to watch. Basically, the US came out swinging, dominating the landscape with these tightly guarded, closed-source AI models, and then restricted the export of advanced AI chips to keep that edge. but cut off from those advanced components, trying to just pivot it. They're now optimizing massive quantities of cheaper, less advanced chips to build totally formidable open-source giants. A perfect example is Moonshot AI's Kimi K3 model, which flexes an unbelievable 2.8 trillion parameters. It just goes to show you that slapping down technological roadblocks often just forces your competitors to innovate in totally unexpected ways.
Over to Section 4, Geography, specifically the Black Sea, mapping some incredibly volatile geopolitical waters. This is highly relevant for your prelims, especially since the government just had to issue a strict warning to Indian seafarers about these waters following attacks on major commercial ports.
So, let's lock this into our memory right now. India has a huge number of seafarers working globally, and recent attacks on Ukraine's Odessa port have made this area incredibly dangerous. For exam purposes, picture the map and go counterclockwise starting from the north: Ukraine, Russia, Georgia, Turkey, Bulgaria, and Romania. Get those 6 bordering countries nailed down because this region is not cooling down anytime soon.
And to fully understand the geopolitics here, you have to know the connecting straits, because the Black Sea isn't a closed-off lake. Up north, the Kerch Strait connects it directly to the Sea of Azov. Down in the south, the Bosphorus Strait acts as this critical gateway to the Sea of Marmara. From there, ships squeeze through the Dardanelles Strait into the Aegean Sea, the Mediterranean, and finally out into the Atlantic Ocean. If you want to understand the geopolitical maneuvering in this region, you absolutely have to understand these maritime choke points.
Finally, Section 5, the 2026 Commonwealth Games. It's a decidedly trimmed-down sporting spectacle this time around. Let's look at the 23rd edition, currently happening in Glasgow, Scotland, which is definitely going to pop up in your sports-related prelim questions. To give you the historical context quickly, the Games kicked off in 1930 in Hamilton, Canada. They've only ever been interrupted twice, which was due to World War II. Flash forward to 2010, and India hosts in Delhi, pulling off a record-breaking 101-medal haul. Now we're at the 23rd edition in Glasgow, and all eyes are already looking ahead to 2030, where India is projected to host the Games once again, this time in Ahmedabad.
Now, looking at the current Games, a massive congratulations is in order for Mirabai Chanu taking home gold and Rishikant securing silver in weightlifting. But a really important structural detail to remember for exams, the event has been heavily scaled down. The 2022 Games had 19 sports, but Glasgow trimmed that all the way down to just 10. Consequently, India obviously didn't send athletes for entirely axed events like basketball and netball.
I want to leave you with this final, overarching thought for your mains preparation. Balancing our massive technological and defense leaps, things like Project Kusha and booming defense exports, with the absolute necessity of eradicating ancient societal failures like manual scavenging and immense student stress, that is the ultimate challenge for the future administrators of this country. How exactly do we ensure our societal progress matches the blistering pace of our technological triumphs? Think deeply on that as you study. Thank you so much for joining this explainer, and keep that curiosity sharp. See you next time.